are the Big 12 power rankings this morning. And it's a very interesting, it's turned into a weekly slugfest on this show. And frankly, I'm here for it. I love the fact that the Big 12 is a battle, that we don't know on a week in, week out basis who the best team in this league is. And that's not a bad thing. I think there's only two. And K-State fan, please don't like meow me and get all, upset and chill out. It's Iowa State and BYU fighting for supremacy at the top of the Big 12. It's the Cyclones and the Cougs. And do Cougs fly? I don't know, but we're going to find out in the tornado of not Ames, Iowa, where the two do not play. So if each handles their business, they're going to meet in Tarrant County for the Big 12 championship. And there's nothing K-State can do about that unless they wind up beating Iowa State, which would be very interesting because I think that Iowa State's the best team in this league. And Cougar fan, I get it. You want to reign supreme in this league, but there is not much of a difference. If you look at the two teams, Iowa State and BYU, I think the major difference is the defense. Iowa State's defense is elite. I think Jake Retzloff wins the quarterback battle. I think BYU has the wide receivers. The biggest issue is I am concerned about BYU's offensive line matching up against Iowa State's front. I think that's the only difference between the two teams. I think it is very close. It's a razor-thin margin, but Jake, I'm going with Iowa State as the best team in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think that Iowa State is a quality football team. There's no getting around that. I based on what I've seen, I would say BYU has more of a propensity to make that big play in a game to kind of change the tide of a game. We've seen it multiple times this year, whereas Iowa State's much more of a team that just is imposing their will and doesn't give you those opportunities. So, I think it's very close. I would agree. I think it's week in and week out. I would love to get a Big 12 championship game between these two, but we'll see if that takes place. But what I can say is that, I do think that Jake Retzloff right now would win that quarterback battle. And I do think, and obviously it's Holy War week and lead up for BYU, and we're going to preview that game. But one of my first thoughts, whether it's Utah or Iowa State, any good defense against Jake Retzloff is how good does Jake protect the football? If we're sitting here having a conversation about BYU versus Iowa State, obviously turnovers are something that we have to talk about. And I think Jake did a great job of not turning the football over as much against UCF. Obviously had the fumble, but no interceptions. And I thought protected it well overall and controlled the game. So to me, who's the best team? It's probably Iowa State. I think you have to give them a slight edge. But if those two played in a neutral site, head to head, I would say that's as close to a pick 'em as we could get in college football right now.
Yeah, I would agree, and I hope that I hope over these next 2 weeks as we lead up to BYU and Utah, the game of the year in the Big 12 so far. I hope that we don't have anybody losing their life to this game. It was interesting yesterday. Kalani Sitake, the head coach at BYU, gave his weekly media availability and talked a lot about how he hopes that there is civility amongst the fan base for BYU and Utah, because there has been literal violence. There has been family separation over all of this. Just a football game. And I think that this game is a season wrecker. I think that this game, the script has been so flipped on football in the state of Utah. This game means everything to both of these teams. It is Utah's only way to save their season because they have been so bad offensively. It is BYU's probable ticket to the promised land and to Dallas for the Big 12 championship game. I mean, it's everything. And there's so many people that are concerned about the vitriol between the two fan bases. And I kid you not, in this state, in the state of Utah, there are families who do not talk for the next 2 weeks. There are people who will not go to church for the next 2 weeks. The Sunday after the game, churches will be empty because one fan base won't be there. That's what we're talking about. We are talking about brothers that don't speak because of the rivalry, ever speak. We are talking about the hottest of the hot. It's remarkable how much heat is on BYU and Utah.
Yeah.
And it's why I say every year it's the single best rivalry. It should be played every year, but I think people can't handle the vitriol in this series. They just can't in this state.
Yeah,
and so I don't know that you can play it every year.
Right. And I think, particularly this year it's different because, Utah is not where they typically are. And I think that you can't undersell that from the emotional side. Like, obviously it goes without saying that Utah is fully embracing the wreck your season villain role in this game. And, that can lend itself to a lot of different things. And again, I'm not saying that Utah is Baylor and would take cheap shots and do those things. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that it's going to be a really physical game. Like, I would not be surprised to see some roughing the passer penalties. I would not be surprised to see, I just think that these two teams know where each other are. These two teams, are well aware of what's at stake. And I think for BYU, as much as Kalani likes to put up this nice guy front and facade in the media, I think Kalani knows what's at stake. He's got to win this football game. He's got to get over on them. And if you win this football game, I think you're really on your way to the Big 12 championship game. This is your last major, big hurdle in the way. And if you fail here, now everything you've done up to this point is just for naught.
Yeah, I think you have two major hurdles. I think you have Utah. And then I think if you look at where BYU is at 5-0, ninth in the country, I think the most difficult game left on their schedule is in Provo on November 16th against Kansas. I think that is going to be the most difficult game because you are going to play, and that Kansas game will probably be a night game, because I think that BYU will win the rivalry. If I had to pick today, I think they'll come out of that game. I have to believe they'll be 9-0 coming out of Utah. And then you're going to go home in prime time on national TV to play Kansas, who has not been very good at all. And I think that Kansas game will be the most difficult game of the year.
Well, I think the good news for BYU in this situation is you're not traveling much. I mean, I think that,
well, I'd agree with that.
If you don't understand the dynamic here between BYU and Utah and BYU going back home, you're probably via bus. You're probably an hour and 15 minutes, maybe up the freeway via bus, a couple of buses.
I mean, you're down. You're very close to each other.
Yeah.
I think everybody's got their favorite rivalry. And certainly in this day and age, we've lost a lot of rivalries. Obviously, Oklahoma, Oak State, we've lost, for me, Notre Dame, Michigan, Notre Dame, Miami, Notre Dame, pretty much anybody that used to be our rivals. We don't play them anymore outside of USC.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been a part of a lot of great rivalry games in college football. And I can tell you that there is no compare.
Well, and I think for the Big 12 as a conference, this needs to be a great game. Like, one of my biggest concerns in this game is that Utah is going to be exactly who we've known them to be the last couple of weeks, which is really struggle to score and have to find a way on defense. And I don't care what building you're playing in.
Yeah.
If you can't score, it's not going to be that competitive of a game. And that's my biggest concern because, again, and I'm just assuming that it's going to be Isaac Wilson. Who knows? We'll find out. But if it's Isaac Wilson as a true freshman, first rivalry game, like, this is a kid who's from Utah. Like, he knows what this game is.
His brother went to BYU.
Yeah.
So do you guys understand that this game is every day in Utah? This game it's not every weekend that it's talked about. It's not just every Saturday. It's every day. It is every day. When when you lose to a team, what was it, 10 years in a row, it's every day.
Mm-hmm.
When you finally beat that team, it's every day. It's when you have a rivalry based in a faith like the LDS faith, because that's where BYU and Utah, that rivalry lives. When your head coach, Kyle Whittingham, played for Lavelle Edwards and played at BYU, and your head coach at BYU was the defensive coordinator for Kyle Whittingham until he got his dream job at BYU. When you look at the Fano brothers and you look at all of the Isaac Wilson and you look at all the players that were at Utah, you look at all the players that were at BYU, like it's a way of life in this state.
Yes.
And we are just now 2 weeks away from that game.
So,
less than that now, obviously.
For the Big 12 as a conference,
it's a huge day.
Yeah. If you are in Stillwater, let's say, or you're in, Fort Worth or wherever, if you're a Big 12 fan, but you're not really, affiliated, if you will, with the Utah rivalry, you need BYU to win this game. You need BYU to stay undefeated. You need them to go to the Big 12 championship game and ideally represent your conference in the college football playoff. But I'm telling you, somehow, some way, and I only say this based off experience, Kyle Whittingham will find a way to make this game interesting. Notice I said interesting, not close. There will be a time in this game where it's in question. And that's what I think is fascinating as we lead up to it.
And this game will likely, the best part about it is a holy war game will likely determine a conference championship participant.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing.
Admittedly, we were saying it at the beginning of the year, and we thought of that being Utah.
We thought it would be Utah.
Yeah.
And it's not. Is BYU the best team in the Big 12? I think they are. Right now, I think it's really close. I think it's pick'em. I think I would take Iowa State's defense. Everything else, like I said, the wide receiver, the running backs, certainly Jake Retzloff at quarterback. I even think the corners, the coverage goes to BYU. But I don't know. I think that's really close. Does K-State have any claim to the top spot in the Big 12?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you lost to BYU, obviously. A lot of K-State fans are going to tell you that, hey, that was one game. Like, we were at their place. We got shocked, and that's all true. That's all true. Losing 38-6 is I don't think a fair representation of who or what K-State's capable of as a football team. But the reality is that's what happened. The reality is, and this is what K-State fan doesn't want to hear, but in my opinion, the storyline and narrative coming out of that game is you had no ability to get back. BYU was so much better than you that night that they suffocated you and still ran the score up. And that's the part where I have trouble saying that K-State's on the same level as BYU and Iowa State, because you didn't show. It would be different if it was like a 38-31 and you came way back in that game and like you showed us who you were and you just ran out of time. That's not what happened. I mean, you looked lifeless against BYU. So to me, I don't think K-State's got a claim. I don't think they're on the same level at this time.
And again, I think that in these big games, Avery Johnson's going to have to throw you to a win. And I just don't believe the kid can do that yet. I don't think he's that at quarterback. And I understand, K-State fan, y'all get upset when I say that. Show me where I've in a big game, a game of meaning. I don't know, like at BYU. I don't know, like against this past weekend, and you're trying to close that game out. And how did Avery Johnson do against Kansas, your in-state rival, on that last possession where you're trailing and he's trying to throw the ball down the field? Well, it almost got picked off twice, and once by a defensive lineman in a panic throw. That's what separates. I think when you look at Rocco Becht, Jake Retzloff, Avery Johnson's just not on their level as a passer.
I mean, Jake Retzloff made it look routine to go down the field at the end of the first half with what was it, like 40 seconds, I think, or whatever they had, and they had timeouts. I mean, he made it look routine to just go right down the field and score 7 in that type of situation. Like, I don't think it's wrong or hot take guy or like outlandish to say that Yeah, Avery Johnson is a tremendously talented quarterback who admittedly, in my opinion, does have a big arm. I think he's got a good arm on him. The problem is the decision making. The problem is recognizing the coverage before the snap and in pre-snap reading, and then being able to say, okay, we're running 2-minute drill, can't take a sack here, but also can't turn the football over. So my clock of, hey, I need to throw this away needs to speed up. And those are the things that I look at, whether it's, making it uncomfortable for K-State in big moments or just not being good enough yet to say, hey, you're not that team yet. You're the third best team in the Big 12. And I could make a really strong case that if a couple other teams had their stuff together this year, we'd be having a different conversation about you. So I just, K-State fan does tend to get a little edgy about it. They do tend to be a little upset.
Well, and I think it's tough to argue that he certainly struggled in the BYU game. I mean, the two games that stand out to you, and I hope people get this, I don't think he's a bad football player. I think he's Taysom Hill. I think he's a guy that you don't want to count on him to throw you to wins. I think if you're playing from behind, Avery Johnson is not your first choice in quarterbacks. And I don't even think that he's, and I understand it frustrates people, but is he top 10 in this league? He's not starting at BYU. He's not starting at Iowa State. Is he starting over Jalen Daniels at Kansas?
I would say that's close because of availability.
Shedeur Sanders?
No.
Just look down the rest of the list. He's not starting at TCU, Texas Tech. He's not starting at Cincinnati. He's probably starting at West Virginia. He's not starting at Arizona State. He's probably starting at Baylor, Houston. He's not starting at Arizona. He's probably the starter at Utah, frankly. Is he the starter at UCF?
Yes. He is better than Ja'Cory. He has more. So the thing at UCF,
is he better than Risk? And I don't know that he's better than Risk. 6 of 10, 210 and a touchdown out of Risk. That was a different game if UCF starts him.
Yeah. Sample size, though, too. In fairness to Avery.
And is he starting over, anybody at Oak State? Yes, he is.
Yeah, he is.
So he's not top 10 in the Big 12. And I understand that K-State fans going to get upset about that. I'm not saying that he's a bad quarterback. I'm telling you that he is not a guy you want if your team is behind and you got to throw for a win, or if you need a quarterback to stand in the pocket and deliver the football. That's not who Avery Johnson is. It's just not.
Yeah, I don't think that Avery Johnson's a good enough quarterback yet in the passing game to roll up to the line of scrimmage or stand there in shotgun and say, okay, here's the coverage. I know the play. This is where I need to go.
Yeah.
Because if you watch him pass, he's a 1-2 read guy. That's what he is. Hey, first read, second read. Okay, let's go. He's not first read, second read, third read, come back to my first read, and then run away from the defensive end who's bearing down on you. That's and look, I think if you're a K-State fan, your argument should be, okay, well, what happens when he does develop? Because that running game is going to only get better as he becomes a better passer. So if you're a K-State fan, I would be really excited about, what Avery can become and what that program's doing. Now, the question is, does he develop into a top 5 passer in the Big 12 in his time at K-State? Because what you can't get away from is that Will Howard clearly was a pass-first quarterback who didn't really develop all that much at K-State. And he's gone to Ohio State, and he has looked better. He has had some questionable plays, admittedly, but generally speaking, he has looked better, and he has lived up to it. So my question for K-State is not whether Avery's good enough or not. The guy is young. He's a kid at this point. What's he going to be in 2-3 seasons? That's what I want to know. Because if you're a K-State fan, your expectations should be through the ceiling, man.
Yeah, and I just look at numbers. He's 10th in the Big 12 in passing. They're number 2 in the league in rushing. K-State fan just gets so torqued. And if I go to the comment section, Steve Stepanek, who's a K-State guy, says he's 6-1. No, he's not. K-State is 6-1. The win doesn't go to Avery Johnson. And how do you argue that And I don't know how it is what it is.
Well, no, I think the conversation we're having is where does K-State stack up in the Big 12?
A
And
distant third.
a distant third, definitively. I don't think you can sit here, even as the most passionate K-State fan that Steve clearly is, and we know him to be. You can't sit here and say that Avery Johnson's 6-1, right? What you need to say is, yeah, Avery Johnson is the quarterback of this team, but if we're gonna have that type of take, the running back room is 6-1. That's what you should be saying.
Can you imagine this team if Josh Hoover, if Brendan Sorsby is your quarterback, if
Baron Morton,
Noah Fafita, if those guys are your quarterbacks, you're probably beating BYU.
Yeah.
You're probably the best team in the league. But I just remind people, if your offense is not explosive, and if you are not able to get the ball down the field consistently, you're not going to run to a conference championship in this league, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. CD, he is good, but not great yet.
I mean, you can clearly see the formula of, hey, if he develops the passing game, he can break the defense running. Like, you can clearly see that that's within him.
Yeah.
But and I don't know, is it a thing where he doesn't trust what he sees yet? Is that what holds him back? Is that what, leads to some of those questionable decisions? Is it that the game is still moving too fast for him? Like, those are the questions that I would have. And again, for guys like Steve or any K-State fan in the comments section, you're going to say we're hating. I don't feel like we're hating. I feel like we're telling the truth. We're being honest about where your quarterback's
No,
at.
I hate on Riley Leonard at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I don't hate on Avery Johnson. D-Rock Irish, good morning. Speaking of Notre Dame, right on cue. UCF's Malzahn's birthday was yesterday, and he goes ahead and fires his DC. Gus Malzahn Gus is going to get whacked after the season. Like, he's not calling plays anymore. You fire your defensive coordinator. That is one of the most disappointing teams in this league, right, is UCF now. There just is no doubt. The big guy, Baylor has a better QB. Sawyer Robertson.
Nah, I can't agree with that.
I would take Avery Johnson over Sawyer Robinson.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt. No Monties. If Colorado wins out, would the college football playoff put them in? I don't know. Where would they be ranked? What would if you look at their schedule, what are they, 6-2 right now, I think? At Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, and Oak State. Utah and Oak State are at Folsom. Their road games are Tech and Kansas.
See, so right there, I got to say, you're definitely in the Texas Tech game.
They don't have a big win. We've talked about this before. They don't have that go-to, hey, we beat K-State. Hey, you beat who? Who you don't have, like, Notre Dame's got a crappy schedule, but we beat Texas A&M at Kyle Field.
Yeah.
They're not going to have that. And I think,
well, if you go to the AP, I think the other thing you got to look at is who's in front of them, because that's the other part of what, factors in.
They're 23rd in the country. You're not. So are they more ready, or do they have a better resume than a Washington State? Well, absolutely. Washington State's best win is Texas Tech, and Colorado's going to be able to match that. Army, SMU, Ole Miss, you're probably not getting in over Ole Miss. You're both 6-2. You just have such a long road to hoe.
Yeah, I think it's a long shot to get into the college football playoff, even if you do run the table. Because I also think, and this is something we were talking about a little bit yesterday, but I think college football fans need to go ahead and get on board with the idea that it's not just your overall resume. Yes, you need the signature win, but you also have to build the reputation nationally that you're playing good football, that your team is good. Like someone who has only watched 3/4 of a game in your entire season needs to be able to say, yeah, if Shedeur and Colorado matched up with this team, yeah, they probably would beat that team in the college football playoff. But I don't think people say that about Colorado right now.
I just think it's such a tall hill to climb. Like,
I think that's probably a next year conversation.
Yep. Royal Blue. Monty, K-State doesn't go 6-1 without Avery Johnson. How do you know? Who's their quarterback?
Yeah.
Who would be you can't say that unless you tell me who the quarterback is. I just don't think you can do that. I said we have to win out to prove it. Even if you win out, if everybody wins out, do you get to the Big 12 championship game? Are you going to the college football playoff? Because I would remind you, there's not a whole lot of love for K-State right now. It's 17. They're this amazing team with the best quarterback anybody's ever seen is 17th.
Yeah.
So even if you win out, and granted, the good news for K-State fan is that you have some quality wins ahead of you here. Mainly Iowa State and Cincinnati to end the year. Now you need Cincinnati, who is 5-3. It would have been nice if Cincinnati could have closed out that Colorado game, but Colorado was significantly better. They've got West Virginia, Iowa State, K-State, and TCU. So what's the issue here? If you're a K-State fan, you need them to win every game but the K-State game. And then Cincinnati's a 4-loss team, so is that really that great of a win? It's probably not. Like, it's going to be tough. You have one game really left on your schedule, and that's in Ames against Matt Campbell and Iowa State.
Look at Alabama's schedule, because Alabama is in front of them, and Alabama's a team that people feel like can still get in. So if Alabama...
Say it correctly, please.
Alabama roll tide. What?
I'll wait for the drop.
Well, I'm
show some respect.
I'm doing a take here.
I don't give a piss about nothing but the tide, baby.
God, no, I'm kidding. Alabama, and this is a problem for the K-States and the Colorados of the world. Alabama's got at LSU, at Oklahoma, Auburn, and I mean, they also have a scrimmage in there called Mercer. Should probably be called Mercy.
So hear me out. 2-loss Alabama team. Let's say they lose to LSU. Or actually, that'd be a 3-loss Alabama team at that point.
You're out.
You're out. So if you're a K-State fan, you need Alabama to lose that game, because then you go back to the AP and you're like, all right, cool. Cross Alabama.
Notch.
Cross Alabama off the list. Now we just need to get rid of Indiana. If we handle our business.
But what happens if Alabama loses? LSU wins.
Mm-hmm.
And where's LSU?
In the top 10 at that point.
16th. And where are you? 17th. The road, like that team sitting at 15. What's the state?
That's shocking to me. Like
Indiana. Like, it's just such a long hill to climb. But you're right, Stepanek, you can only take him 1 week at a time. And you goddamn better beat Iowa State.
Yeah.
You had better beat Iowa State. It's the only thing that matters. You know, I'm just, you know, and such as and like.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Stepanek also says, I think one team from the Big 12 goes to the playoff. That's who wins the Big 12. Yeah, I don't think they're getting 2 in.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. All right, top 5 teams. Top 5 goddamn teams in the Big 12. I'm a little fired up today. I have a lot of energy. I slept. I got 2 hours and 10 minutes of REM sleep last night. Top 5 teams. I'm going to put Iowa State number 1.
Yeah.
BYU number 2.
Yep.
Colorado number 4. And I don't know. I'm stuck between TCU and West Virginia for number 5. Notice I skipped Case. I'm just being an ass. K-State's. I've got Iowa State, BYU, K-State, Colorado. I want to say West Virginia 5, but I just think there's not much separation from, like, I'm not going to say Texas Tech because of that defense.
Right.
Cincinnati or West Virginia for 5?
I would probably go Cincinnati. I think West Virginia is very clear what they need to do to win, and they need to be at home against an opponent that can't throw the football.
I'm really disappointed in West Virginia's defense. I think that's the major thing that I feel like has let them down. They've scored plenty of points at West Virginia. I'm really disappointed in their defense.
Right.
And I think that's why I would give a nod to Cincinnati there.
Totally agree.
I think that what Sorsby's done there is, as well as he's played, I think Satterfield's done a great job building that program up from nothing after Idiot Face went to Wisconsin.
Idiot Face.
That's still one of the most perplexing, frustrating. I'm never going to say his name again, ever. Anyway, there you go. Damian Fowler, the homerism on this show is what makes the show. Jake, push the homer button. How am I being a homer?
How is dude being a homer, bro?
How am I being a homer?
You're a homer. Is the first part.
We haven't talked Notre Dame at all.
Okay, so Damian, what are we being a homer on? And I'm asking you legitimately because I don't understand what you're saying. We're being a homer. Or is that a BYU dig? Is that a we have like what you just said? We haven't talked.
Don't forget we're a Utah show.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we're an SEC show, so
Big Ten.
I mean, at some point we'll be regarded as a dead, dying Pac-12 show. I'm sure. So I'm just curious what we're being a homer about.
Sooner fans are MIA. Well, what do they have to be seen in action about?
Sooner fan and Utah fan can hang out. You know what I mean?
Is that one of the worst hires in the last 5 years with Venables?
Yeah. Well, I just think, how do you go from Lincoln Riley to Venables? How does that work? And by the way, who's going to be after Venables? Because that time's coming.
Jake, where did Venables come from?
Who's that guy?
He came from the, what was that?
Dwayne Wade saying, who's that guy?
Oh, couldn't understand it. Terrible drop. He came from Dabo's coaching tree.
Right. Because Dabo's some amazing guy.
Well, Jesus created Dabo's coaching tree. It's the tree of death.
Sure. In God's name, image, and likeness.
Right.
CD, take Mizzou off that top 25. They have no business being
Agreed.
Ranked. That was a disaster.
Agreed.
Damian Fowler. No, I'm not saying you guys. I'm saying all the fans take on the show. Nothing against you two. You better not be.
Oh.
I'm coming for you, Fowler. I don't know.
Stay hard.
Stupid 1D. Stupid. You're stupid. Okay. At least Oklahoma has softball season coming eventually, right?
Damn.
Pete Forte. Wait, this isn't a Pac-12 show? No, it's a Big Ten show.
No.
It's an Ohio State show.
I mean, if you go into the comments section, we're Mountain West fans. It's a Mountain West show.
Don't forget about Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, so.
And his hot girlfriend.
Right.
Lane train and stuff. Car Wash Channel. I say Utah going to win versus rival game BYU 60-0.
Well, that was, man, I don't know what we would have done without that.
You understand that there are rehab centers that you can go to and just check yourself in to get over whatever this hallucinogen is.
And it's at the stadium in the upper deck. Just ask James.
Yeah,
it's there.
60-0. And you paid us $2 to say that. Come on now. Come on, man. Bottom 5 teams. This is where it's very difficult. Who's the worst team in the Big 12?
Oklahoma State.
You think it's Okie Light?
They don't have a win. Has to be.
UCF or Kansas?
UCF.
UCF or Utah?
I would go Okie Light, UCF, then Utah.
My bottom 5. Worst team in the Big 12, Oklahoma State, which is shocking. I think Utah is right now the second worst team in the Big 12 because they just can't move the football. I think Kansas, because Jalen Daniels just is not that guy anymore, and their offensive line is brutal. Arizona is the 4th worst team because I just don't understand what they're doing. There doesn't seem to be a plan. Then I think it's Houston, 5th worst team. I don't think UCF, as disappointing as they are, and they are disappointing, they are not one of the 5 worst teams, UCF, in the Big 12. I think it's the 5 best, the 5 worst, and then everybody else in the middle making a poop sandwich.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say about Kansas is they had been playing better football the last couple of weeks.
I've seen most of their game the last two weeks, and Jalen Daniels he's just isn't making decisions.
Right.
And I think it's because he's constantly running for his life. And he's taking huge shot after huge shot. Like he's just not that bro anymore. I think it is the decline is redonkulous. I can't even imagine it. I can't even. Case Sumbry says, "Let's go, Pokes. We suck." And it's all Gundy's fault. So have you come along now?
Well,
I don't think you at Oak State. I don't think you fire Mike Gundy. I think you fire everybody but Mike Gundy and give him one more year.
Because this team is just hot ass.
If it doesn't get better, then you fire him after next season. If you're in this position a year from now, I'm out. Right? You're done.
No, I'm not going to laugh about Mike Gundy getting poked in the eyeball by his cattle.
Yeah. Steve Stepanek. Don't go red ass, Steve. At least the Mountain Views will be great for Utah and BYU game. Everybody's like, who cares? Who cares, bro? Screw them all. Damn Mormons. I get it. Midweek Coug. Go Utes. Come back to the pack. Never. Yes, that would.
Just take the word. Take the word. Come out. Just back to the pack. What?
This is a family show, Guy. What's
what's the problem?
What are you doing? I've heard this repeatedly. Oh, the Utes are they're losing so they can go back to the pack.
Back to the pack, baby.
Oral Care Club. Hello.
This is a family show.
Grow up. Will you please?
This is a family show, dude. What kind of name is that?
Oral Care Club. Which QB will Utah start is like worrying about which island boy you'll face in a rap battle. Okay.
Wow, bro.
Jake walks into the studio this morning. Dude. Right? It's cold out. It's raining.
Right.
It's not nice outside in Utah. What does Jake say? Oh, man, this weather. No. Whew, excited to be here, Monty. No.
I knew today would be shitty.
Fat Joe's no Ice Cube. That was a joke last night.
He's not.
Fat Joe is no Ice Cube.
That was an embarrassing attempt to replicate Ice Cube's performance at Dodger Stadium. Come on, dude.
That's the not good morning, not how are you, not hey, fat ass. No, just Fat Joe's not Ice Cube.
No.
Hot ass.
He ain't Ice Cube, bro.
Loner phone. Narduzzi made sure he picked the right job. Is he perfect? No, but lives Pitt. Schools need to hire coaches that love their school. IU will lose Signetti. Was that hire worth it if he leaves?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Why would he leave? He's in the Big
Signetti's
Ten.
not going anywhere, bro.